Hey, this is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Aerialist, and we are now part of the Digitant Podcast Network. How's it going, guys? Hope you're doing well. Before we get started, let's talk about a couple things. So Roll It Out is now happening. Live virtual 60-minute body rolling classes taught by little old me. I get to actually see you in person on Zoom. So we're just checking out and trying out times. So this coming week, it's going to be Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. You can also take the recording as many times as you want during the week. So check that on the show notes. Also, if you're interested in aerial rehab, the ground to air progression, that's meant to be the bridge between PT and the air. And then also my full comprehensive curriculum course. Check out those links on my website. And today we have Dawn Tucker. She's an aerialist and executive director of the Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival. She is also a new mama. We talk about her breastfeeding issues, including Raynaud's in the nipples. I learn something new every day. You'll find out all about that. I'd never heard of it. She had morning sickness. We talk about unsolicited comments while pregnant. She had trouble gaining weight prenatal, and she had some postpartum air anxiety that she's still navigating. All right, guys, I'm so excited for you guys to meet Dawn. Let's get started. Dawn, yeah, if you would just introduce yourself, what you do for a living, talk about your family a little bit, where you live, all that.
Okay, yeah. I'm Dawn Tucker. I'm the executive director of the Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival, and I'm also a trapeze teacher at Momentum Aerial Arts, which is in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Nice.
I live in Flagstaff with my family, and I also grew up here in Flagstaff. So I have a 10-month-old son, which is wild. They just grow so fast. And then I also live with my husband, who's a newspaper reporter, and my mother also lives with us.
Oh, that's amazing. So you've got one kiddo. Okay, cool. Boy or girl?
Oh,
did you say already?
boy.
A little boy.
No, I didn't say that.
Are you currently breastfeeding?
Yeah. I'm exclusively breastfeeding. That was a super hard part of our journey.
Really?
Like that was early breastfeeding. I think the first 4 months were probably the hardest thing I've ever done. He and I just had, I think, every single issue possible through breastfeeding. He was born with a tongue and lip tie, so he had to have that released. And then I had Raynaud's, which I actually only had familiarity with through aerial arts because there's a fellow trapezist who has Raynaud's in her fingers and toes, which is like where if they get cold, they sort of like like the blood vessels constrict and they sort of, it's very painful and they like seize up almost.
Oh.
But I had Raynaud's in my nipples while I was breastfeeding.
I learn something new every single time I record a podcast. I've never heard of Raynaud's, and I've never heard of, obviously, Raynaud's in the nipples. How common is this?
It's not super common, but like my lactation consultant, and I strongly recommend a lactation consultant to anyone who's like dedicated to breastfeeding and struggling, which we did. But she recognized it. It took her a little while to diagnose it, but she recognized it pretty quickly. So it can't be totally uncommon. It was something she knew to kind of think about and look for. So she was able to help us with that and like how to get through that and how to work on that. And then once the weather warmed up, it really kind of went away because it is like a cold reaction thing.
So wait, back up. What happens to the nipples and what does that feel like?
It's really painful. It feels like after, like if your hand falls asleep, that like feeling, that like sharp, tingly feeling after. So I would get that at letdown. And for the first few minutes of breastfeeding, obviously during breastfeeding, like your nipple is then in a warm, moist environment of the baby's mouth. So it eases up as you go. So it was really something that hurt when he wasn't nursing, or right at the beginning of nursing, or right during letdown.
I mean, letdown to me never felt good anyway. Like it wasn't a good feeling. And I can't imagine that on top of it, because it's happening multiple times a day, especially if you try to actually go do something else and come back and nurse your kid. Oh my God. Never heard of that in my life. Okay. So really challenging, but did you guys get to a good place with it?
Oh yeah, we're in a great place now. I'm a little nervous now that it's getting cold again, because honestly, I think just like summer and the warmth helped a lot with the Raynaud's. So I'm nervous that it's going to start up now that it's getting cold here again. I'm like, oh no, am I in for it? But everything else we really worked out, and now we have, I think, a really strong. I've always kind of balked at the phrase breastfeeding relationship. It's just not how it feels to me. I get that for some reason that for a lot of women, that is how it feels. And that's like a really like great goal and a comforting thing to establish a breastfeeding relationship. It's not how it feels to me. It feels, like something I do for him. It doesn't feel like a reciprocal, I guess, which is what I would expect out of a relationship. So I don't know if that's just because it started off so hard for us. But to me now, it's something that I do for him because I want to do it for him. It's more of like a service. Is that too weird to say?
No, it's not. And I love that you're saying this, because there are other women out there that feel that way who might not necessarily think that other people believe that. For me, I felt like a cow.
Yeah.
Being milked. Yeah. I mean, of course, me and my daughter have a very, like, we're inseparable in ways that other parents and their kids are not. Like, I co-sleep with my child, and that's always been the case because she wouldn't sleep otherwise. So not apart during sleeping. We also take all of our showers together. Oh. And I don't have a nanny. So like I'm always with my daughter, and I still felt that way. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it in some place. You know what I enjoyed the most? I enjoyed us making eye contact when she was breastfeeding.
Yep.
That's what I enjoyed a lot.
Yeah. I love that. And that's the moments at which it feels like, that lovely, like warm connection people are talking about. But that's, he doesn't make eye contact during a lot of it. He's just kind of like zoned out, He's
like, I'm eating lunch right now. Don't bother me.
Yeah. So to me, it's just it's an important thing that I do for him. I know why I do it. Like I know all the like health benefits and like, honestly for us, the financial benefits.
Yeah. Well, there's also a shortage. Well, there was a shortage. So
there was a shortage. Yeah. So that was a big thing, is it was like, well, this is something I can do where I'm sure it's just there. And that's super lucky. Like that, not every woman has that. So I feel lucky to be able to breastfeed him and to have what we have going on as far as breastfeeding now. But of course now we're in the stage where I'm like, well, what does weaning look like? Like I have no idea. He's still eating 5 times a day during the day. And I'm like, shouldn't this be like, should we be moving towards solids soon? Should we, he eats some solids, he spits out a lot of solids, but that adds a whole nother layer where you're like, I don't know when this is going to change. And trying to just trust that it will change as it's supposed to, but also feeling like I don't know anything. I know nothing about breastfeeding. I feel like we're so isolated in it as a culture. And, I was reading a book on breastfeeding, and she was talking about women in cultures where, everyone just breastfeeds and everyone breastfeeds openly. They spend their entire life learning to breastfeed. And I was talking to my husband about this just this morning, and I was like, my like doula showed me a slideshow and was like, here's what breastfeeding is. And it was like, so I was expected to learn how to breastfeed in 20 minutes from a slideshow.
Yeah.
And I wasn't around it or experiencing it or like knowing what it was. So again, my lactation consultant was like crazy important to me and really helpful. But it's a wild thing it becomes this full-time job that no one trained you for.
Yeah.
Like, no one.
Yeah. Yeah. I do feel like Europeans are better at this. I mean, it's like every single time I get on this podcast, I start talking down on America because there's so many things that we need to fix. I am very proud to live in this country and to be American, but there's a lot of room for improvement there. And then the other thing that we kind of passed over that I was thinking was you live in Arizona. It's not ever that cold there, right?
Well, we live in Flagstaff, so we're 7,000 feet elevation.
Oh.
So it's actually quite cold here.
Really?
Yeah, like today, today it's in the 60s. We actually had to turn the heat on for the first time today, but it gets really cold here and it snows a lot.
Oh my goodness, who knew? I always think Phoenix, these people are hot all the time. No, not the case. Okay.
No, we're like 2 hours from Phoenix and we are a completely different ecosystem,
temperate zone, everything, because you're high. Yeah. Ooh, okay. Yeah. And it's dry there. It must be very dry because it's Arizona, plus you have the altitude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's cold sometimes and it's very dry.
And you have trained your whole aerial life at altitude.
Yeah. Yeah, I have. I've gone down to Phoenix to train a couple times. There was someone there who I was specifically working with. Okay. And I can't say I felt like a huge difference not being at altitude, but maybe I would if I like did it, sustained. But yeah, I've always trained here at altitude.
Well, maybe it would be felt more by people who actually aren't used to Flagstaff and then they train in Flagstaff. Right. That might be a very interesting experiment. Okay. Yeah. So is there anything about your prenatal birth, postpartum that stands out to you that you'd like to share?
Well, I was really excited when you asked me to do this podcast because honestly, aerial was the most empowering part of my pregnancy. I did not enjoy pregnancy. I'm again very grateful that I got pregnant. Yeah, and I feel like we kind of like there is this idea that you're supposed to be so grateful that you were able to get pregnant or like that you are pregnant, that you're not supposed to talk about hating it. And I was pretty vocal about how much I disliked it. And for me, that actually opened up this whole community of women who were like, oh my God, I hated my pregnancy too, but I didn't feel like I could talk about it. And, I was always extremely grateful. I'm so grateful to have my son. I would do it all over again for him. I'm not going to do it again to have another baby, but he was worth it. But yeah, I really it was really sick in the beginning. I had a miscarriage right before I had him. I got pregnant with him, and that was so traumatizing. I was not ready for how traumatizing that was. And then, the early pregnancy, I was just so sick. I could hardly keep it together teaching aerial while in that first trimester, nausea was insane. I tried everything, every trick in the book. And then, I just had a really negative experience around outside of aerial. I had a really negative experience about how entitled people felt to comment on my body.
Yes.
And it was, constantly. And I think people thought they were being nice because their comments would always be like, oh, you look so great. Oh, you're so tiny. Oh, you can't possibly be X months pregnant. But, little did they know that on the medical side of it, my lack of weight gain was a concern and a problem with my. So they were legitimately concerned about my baby's growth and potential birth weight. And here are people being like, oh my God, you look amazing. You're so tiny. And it was the biggest stress factor of my pregnancy.
So it just like, added to it.
Yeah, it was like, please, like, just, you don't know what you're talking about, and you don't know what a stressor this already is for me. Yeah. So to have people from the outside, like, also bombarding me with it, it was just really painful. And luckily, like, everything was fine. He was small. He was 6 pounds, 7 ounces, but that's a perfectly healthy birth weight. And, you know, and he was totally healthy when he was born. So luckily it wasn't a problem. But throughout my pregnancy, there was always this like looming cloud of like, you're not, you know, like you're not doing everything right to make your baby healthy. And then people being like, oh my God, you look amazing. You're so tiny. And it was like, no, like this is my largest stress factor. But I never felt that in the studio. I have amazing, you know, like my mentor and teacher. She has had several pregnant like students that she's worked with, and she empowered me so much in the studio. Like she kind of made this long list of when she thought I would have to give up like certain things. In aerial, like when we would start to cull things out. And honestly, like I didn't have to cull very much out at all. Only hip hangs, like, you know, anything sort of on my belly, but my abs never split. So I was able to do beats, do inverts, do, you know, like I have a picture of myself doing a back balance at 8.5 months and doing toe walks at 8.5 months. And like everyone in the studio was just so like interested in what was going on and like how it felt, and like so trusting of me as a aerial practitioner to just like do what felt good in my body and keep practicing aerial until I didn't want to. And honestly, yeah, I taught to 7.5 months, and then I practiced to 8.5 months. And I didn't have a reason for quitting. I just went in one day to an open gym and I was like, actually, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like getting up there. And I was like, okay, that's like my body telling me it's time to stop until he's born. But yeah, I actually found it to be a really amazing experience for me, in direct contrast to what the rest of like culture was throwing at me. Because instead of comments about like the size of my body, people were just like, wow, you're so strong and you're still practicing. And like, that's so cool, you know. And I remember Morgan saying it, that's my mentor and teacher, Morgan Louvier, who's one of the co-owners of Momentum, where I work. She's a fabulous human. I remember her saying at one point, like, oh, you're only getting stronger because now like you're doing pull-ups with a 25-pound weight belt, essentially. Like, you know, she's like, you're just going to keep getting stronger. I was like, how cool. And it was really fun and empowering for me. So a very area pregnancies. That
the wonderful thing about our community is that there is this understanding that there's no reason to tell a woman what they should or shouldn't be doing. We need to trust each other, that you know your body. And I don't know about you, and I think this is probably the same for almost every listener. It's like when somebody tells, like, I know my body better than anybody else because I live in it. And
yeah,
no one has any business telling me what to do with my body. My doctor can make suggestions and like, you know, bring expertise to it, or my practitioners that I trust. But yeah, my one of my favorite moments when I was pregnant was like white men. It would only be white men walking past me and making comments about my pregnant belly. And I was like, what the hell makes you think that you have any right to make a comment about anybody's body, anybody's pregnant body, anything?
Yeah.
What kind of privilege do you have in your ingrained, you know, skin cells or whatever that makes you think that that is okay? You know, and by the time you're in your third trimester, you have no time for any bullshit anyway. So like, I held myself back because I knew it was going to become like an altercation of a conversation, but I wanted to scold this guy so badly. And he was an older gentleman. He wasn't a young man. Woo! That took every bit of my, of my willpower to not bring that guy to school. But yeah, it's, I feel like I have heard many stories of both, women in our communities that were either DNA or just because they're sick all the time, like just not gaining a lot of weight throughout the pregnancy. And then the opposite, women who are super athletic, but then, gain 50 to 80 pounds in the pregnancy just based on hormones, etc. And the comments out in the outside world, not in our safe spaces of our aerial lives, are beyond like out of bounds, obnoxious, everything. And I don't know how we make people better. I don't know. I wish that there was a way to educate people, because also podcasts like this, where also the people who are listening are a like-minded community as well. It's kind of insular.
Right.
So I don't know, but I'm really sorry about that. And I know we are all with you, because that is like, it's like on one hand, just obnoxious, and on the other, just so wrong. It's like, you don't know, people don't know what the person's going through. Like, one of my good friends had low amniotic fluid, and it was partial the reason why she looked like she wasn't as far along. And it was so stressful. Yeah. And then every comment on top of it just piled on. So,
right. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. It was just like, just don't make a comment. Like, you don't know what's going on. And it was frustrating, because I do think people thought they were complimenting me. And it was like, please, like, you have no idea. This is like, your baby's not even born yet, and your only concern is, are you meeting their physical needs? And you're being told that potentially you aren't. And it's so stressful, and it's just like, but then at the end, I think it's what you said, right? Like, we also have to trust our own bodies. Like, I wish I had spent my whole pregnancy just saying, like, I know my body is doing the right thing for my baby. So I was getting all this low weight, but his heart rate was strong, like all these other things were going right. And if I had just said, you know what, I believe that my body is doing what it needs to do to take care of this baby, I would have had such a more enjoyable pregnancy.
Well,
and I could have let go of that stress.
And then also stress isn't good for the pregnancy. So it's like, both. And then also, to like know what you can control and try to let go of the rest. It's so, that's such a hard thing to do, period, in life, with every single thing. That's probably been my biggest struggle in my entire life, to let go of the things that I can't control. So hard to do. So hard.
I'm always like, are you sure I can't control that though? But are you sure I can't control that?
Yeah. And I feel like Ariel seems to attract a bit of a control freak type of personality. I see that all the time in my students and myself. Oddly, because up there, you can control things a lot.
Yeah, you can.
I had a friend, I have another podcast called Greener Grass, and she was asking me what the actual risk level of my job is. And I was like, it's a lot less than you think. It's a lot less, because if you think about like, somebody playing tennis or somebody playing like a sport where there's a competitor, you have no control over the variable that is the other person. Unless you were doing doubles, which in that case, even then, it's not as risky as you would think, because the amount of trust that you build to work together. But when you have a competitor, you have an opponent, they're trying to knock you off your game. Like, you could get hit. And like, what is the chance that somebody gets hit in the face with a tennis ball versus me losing all of my awareness and just falling like nothing? Very, very different calculation there. And people don't necessarily seem to understand. Although I did have, I teach Silks 1 on Sundays, and yesterday I had a class. And I was teaching something like angel dive roll on Silks, which is just like a very basic forward salto. It's one of the first drops I teach people because there's around 4 safeties that I can count. Yeah. So if they mess up on 3 of them, they're still in the air. And this girl is really strong, and she dropped the drop with me watching, with me talking her through it, and she didn't do 2 out of the 4 things. And I'm like, get down now. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, you have to be aware enough to do all the things that I'm talking about in the same motion. And she's learning it at the right time too. She's not too early to learn it. She's very strong. But people's brains, if their brain isn't trained to it, it's such a mental activity. Sorry, I just started lecturing. You're not my student.
No.
This is what I do in class. I'm like, no. That's not okay.
It's really funny because I did one private lesson with like some friends and family, just 4 people, a friend, my sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and my husband. And I was teaching them, like the first 2 moves we learn in Trapeze 1A, and one of which is called Bird's Nest. It's very, very, very safe, but you cannot let go with your hands. You have to hold on with your hands. I say it over and over. I've never had a student let go with their hands. They always hold on. It's perfectly safe. My husband lets go with his hands. And I was like, of course, you're the one. The only student I've ever had who let go with their hands. I mean, luckily he's tall and he was on a very short trapeze and it was a very short fall to the ground. But I was like, man, of course it's you.
I say it all the time. I'm like, it might feel obvious, but don't let go. Like, unless I say, this is where you let go. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the danger we're talking about. It's like doing something you're not supposed to be doing. When I was reading, just scrolling through the mamas group, you were talking about in a post that you were having some anxiety getting back into the air postpartum. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So like I said, I was super lucky through my pregnancy. I didn't have my abs didn't split at all. So I had no diastasis and I was able to get back in the air 2 months postpartum. And honestly, it was emotionally too soon. I was physically ready and I needed to feel like myself again. Especially that like those early postpartum hormones, are so hard. Breastfeeding was so hard. And I just thought like, I need some part of normalcy and some part of my life back. But I emotionally wasn't ready to be back on the trapeze. I wasn't ready to be away from my baby really like it, without a way. I don't know. It was very emotionally confusing and hard for me. And I started off in a like very beginner level class. I just started taking a beginner flow class. And that was at Morgan's suggestion. And she was absolutely right to kind of like push me to that class and to try something to really ease me in.
And what was the apparatus for this class?
Trapeze.
Trapeze is your primary.
It's kind of my only, I would say that I dabble. I've tried them all and that I dabble also in Lyra, but trapeze is like my apparatus.
You're like the opposite aerialist as me.
Yeah. It's not everyone's like.
No, and no, it's Silks is not everybody's jam either. So keep on going.
Yeah. So then about 5 months postpartum, I crept back up into like close to my level of where I left, but still a lower level. And I messed something up, something that I have done a million times and for years and years, something called a gazelle swizzle, which is an invert crochet and then a swizzle down just one rope to the bar. Nothing happened. I did not get hurt. I did not mess it up to the level where I just scared myself a tiny bit. And then I could not do it again. Like I could not Like I would start to feel this and like anxious. And then when we started learning new things that put me even like a little bit of discomfort, or I thought like that doesn't seem safe. I used to be like completely fearless, especially because like you're talking about, you get to a point as an aerialist where you trust your own strength. You're like, even if something goes wrong, I know how to hold on to this apparatus. I know how to get out of whatever I'm in. I know how to get down safely, even if not correctly. But I kind of lost that confidence. So, you know, I have started working with Morgan privately on like building back up to those skills. Because then there was a second one where I scared myself. Again, nothing bad happened. Not, you know, like I had a moment in the air of like, what do I do? And then it was like, no, I can never do that again. So we actually got past one of them. She's really great at deconstructing a skill and having me do a little bit of it at a time. And we got past one of them and now I can do it all the time. It's fine. The other one we're still working on. But in class, when new things come up, if I feel like it's going to scare me, I just don't do it. I don't not do it. Like I'm trying to figure out how to explain, but I have to do things in steps. So yesterday we were working on something called L handstand, which is probably like the most precarious handstand you can do in a trapeze. And I just told her, you know what? I know I can invert crochet. I know I can get, you know, like one hand down to the bar. I think I can get my other toe on the rope, but I'm probably going to stop there instead of completing the move. And she was like, great, stop there. So I've had to figure out like that really what's happened is not so much that I can't do the things or I'm too scared of the things, but that if I scare myself, I'm really in trouble. Like with that move, it's going to take me a lot longer to get back to it. Whereas before, if I messed something up, it was almost more of an impulse to work harder on that skill. I'd be like, okay, well, I messed it up. Like I need to drill that on my non-dominant side every day until I'm doing it perfectly. And now it's like, I messed it up and I'm terrified of it and I can't go back to it. And I think it, you know, someone in my class who is a medical professional did come up and say like, I want you to know that this is totally medically normal. Like the hormones that go along with breastfeeding also create this anxiety, this protective anxiety. Like obviously if something happens to you while you're breastfeeding your baby, like that's like evolutionarily bad. So your body is naturally telling you, don't do that risky thing. Don't do that scary thing. Like be safe, be cautious. So yeah, that's been my biggest struggle getting back into it. But I actually think that like what I've learned in cooperation with Morgan is I have to do what doesn't scare me and then keep adding on as I feel confident. I can't kind of just like go for it the way I used to.
Okay, so I'm interested in what this feels like in the moment. Like, is it just a visceral fear, or are you actually having thoughts of your son?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. I think about him. And that's the weird thing is like any of my anxiety will bring this up. And there are times, you know, this anxiety definitely goes beyond aerial for me. This like, I don't know that it's postpartum anxiety because when people suffer from that, you see like such a deeper level, but it's some form of that. And it always goes to my son. So like the theater company that I run, we had a lightning storm and we perform outdoors. And I had to text my husband. Like I knew my baby was napping and I was like, please send me a picture of Blake. Like, I don't care if it's like a picture of the monitor, but I need to see him right now and see that he's okay. Whereas, you know, like he was home sleeping and I was in the middle of a lightning storm. And it was like, you know, he's okay right now. Like everything, like my whole body was just, but it is also visceral. Like I feel like I feel super nauseous.
Okay.
When it happens and, I feel like frozen. I feel really frozen, which is what you don't want on an aerial apparatus, right? So that's what I've talked through with Morgan is like, I know that the worst thing that I can do in most precarious situations is decide to bail. And I know not to bail. And I know everything I can do that's not bailing. Like, I know exactly how to get myself out of the position that I'm in. And yet this specific fear strikes me instead of what I would normally do of being like, oh, I'm a little confused or I feel a little precarious. Okay, like regrip, reposition, figure it out, get down safely. My whole body says, bail, 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 bail. Like,
would you characterize it as a panic attack?
It feels kind of like that. Okay. It doesn't come with like, I've definitely had panic attacks. It doesn't come with the same like heightened anxiety. Like it's not like the I don't know. Whenever I've had I've only had one or two in my life, and they've been around very, very big life events. But that has more of a like kind of like fluttery anxiety and like and this is more of a like, oh, I feel sick and I can't move.
So
like I can't move.
Interesting. I'm very glad that people are way more open to talking about anxiety. I think so many of us suffer. I'm permanently like treated on Zoloft for anxiety because I'm not normal. I am not what I consider a normal person without it. But it's so interesting because I talk about my anxiety all the time, and my students and people around me ask me, then how can I be an aerial teacher? How can I do it as a profession? But my anxiety comes up in my life in completely different ways than what people would expect. Like I had postpartum anxiety disorder. I don't know if we call it a disorder or if it's just a phase, but it manifested in not being able to rest. For example, like I would try to go take a nap, and the whole time I would be racing in my head that the time is ticking. I'm not sleeping yet.
Yes. Oh, yes.
That's how it manifests myself versus, then I learned later on from my friend who's a therapist that this is one of the markers of postpartum anxiety, because if sleeping does not give you a sense of relief, because I would wake up and I would feel the same way. Like,
yeah.
And she's like, this is not normal postpartum, I would be weepy all the time, more than hormonal in my entire life. All of my responses would be crying. And therefore that really colors your relationships, because then you're turning a regular relationship conversation into one person's crying and hysterical. And then the other person's just trying to have a normal conversation. It affects, but in such different ways, this broad scope of what anxiety can look like and feel like and manifest itself. And it's interesting as well to me that you are an instructor. You've been an instructor for how many years?
2 or 3. Now I can't remember.
Okay, so
a couple of years.
And then practicing
pre-pandemic, so I guess at least 3.
Okay, yeah. So previous practice of it, and then you became an instructor. And can you imagine, I'm sure we all can, being a student, just a student, not having any like inclination to be a teacher or even getting close to that, going through a pregnancy and then having these same emotions going back in the air? How heightened that might even be, to not have the level of knowledge that you or I might have, and then to also be dealing with that anxiety. I think that's really real for a lot of my students, and I have to do that work with them as well, because it manifests itself differently in every single person. And then if you don't have that air awareness that you have, if you don't have that the knowledge of what you're doing, because sometimes you learn stuff, but for the most part, a lot of the stuff, it's really in you. I think that can be super challenging for a lot of students coming into it and then trying to come back to it. So, okay. So is there anything else, like about like where you're at with your practice right now compared to balancing being a mom, balancing the schedule, what it's like balancing your job. Tell me a little bit about how that creative aspect at your job kind of melds with your aerial practice, any of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, luckily we've been able to, we work with Momentum on a lot of projects. We've even done some aerial in some of our plays that
Amazing.
we do. So that's been super fun. Yeah. So I love that. As far as like balancing everything, I'm super lucky in that my job is, you know, like I'm my own boss. And so I can make my own hours. I do take Blake to, he goes to Montessori daycare.
Nice.
For 4 half days a week. And that's huge for me. I had such a struggle with like, you know, before he was going there with this feeling of like, every time I was working, just feeling like I should be with my baby. And every time I was with my baby, feeling like I should be working. And the lovely thing about, you know, taking him there is such amazing care providers. Like they teach him something every day and he loves being around the other kiddos. But what's great about it is then it provides me a little bit of time where I can be working and not thinking I should be with my baby. I should be with my baby. I should be with my baby. It's just time where it's like, okay, I'm just working right now and he's somewhere else and he's fine. And someone else is taking care of him. Because otherwise that division was the hardest adjustment to me from being, you know, like a professional to being a professional and a mom. It was like, okay, how do I balance the guilt? I think there's like a lot of guilt that comes with both sides. Like I've always heard it described as mom guilt, but for me, it was both sides of it. It was guilt, like I'm not doing my job and I really love my job. And I really, you know, love being part of this artistic community. And so feeling like I was letting my company down, but then feeling like I was letting my baby down. And like, that was really hard. Aerial works out really nicely because the studio is super close to me. So on Sundays, I do like, you know, just like a 3-hour block. And then usually whenever else I go in, it's just for an hour. So it fits in really nicely to our schedule. It's like, you know, he's napping or he's with my mom. We're insanely lucky to have essentially live-in childcare also.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even think about that. If my mom was here, it would change my life a lot.
Yeah. Yes, a lot. It's amazing. It came out of, so my son is named after my dad. My dad was named Blake and my dad died very suddenly and very, very unexpectedly before I knew I was pregnant, but like just after I had gotten pregnant. I had no idea I was pregnant yet.
Wow.
And so that series of events led to my mother living with us here. And so she's been here from when I was pregnant. So she was here from day one. And that was just like insanely helpful. I don't know how women do postpartum without essentially like live in, because there were a lot of mornings where, you know, I would wake up in the morning, feed him, pass him off to her and go back to bed. It was like, I got like this extra, you know, hour, 2 hours of sleep that I can't imagine living without during that time when you're up all night, essentially. Yeah, so it's wonderful because, of course, you know, like she wants to be with him. She loves being with him. And so it's pretty easy to just say, hey, could you watch him for an hour while I do this thing? Or even to sit up there, you know, like sit up with her with my computer, just set it up and have him playing with her. And I'm on my computer doing work. And it doesn't feel like I'm, you know, like neglecting him. Like I don't have to put him, you know, like, you know, away. He has a little like, you know, play pen. And I know there's all kinds of thoughts on that kind of thing, but like, if you're alone, which sometimes I end up alone a lot still. And if you're alone and you need to like pee or do some work, like you've got to have a place to put your kid. So
yeah, I called it a baby jail and I was very happy to have it. And I experienced that for 1 week, for maybe a week and a half in my first trimester. And it saved my life because by the time my mom she came when the baby was born, but then she came at the 3-month mark. And by then my sleep deprivation, I mean, I thought I was going crazy because this whole, like, there was no passing her off. And then also my child would never sleep by herself. Like I couldn't put her down really. That first trimester was, I still say it, and I don't know what life has in store for me, but it is and still is the hardest time I've ever had in my life because of all of those factors. And every time I see another woman who has a little bit more support, I'm just like, oh my God, thank God for you. Thank God for you. Because, it's like, I wouldn't, like, postpartum without a lot of support, I would not wish that on anybody. And a lot of people had to go through that because the pandemic, like it was before the pandemic. If it was, I don't know, 6-8 months after, my parents would not have been able to visit because we would have been worried about COVID and they're older, it's not like they only just took their first plane flight recently, like 3 years later, there was a whole, how many years that they didn't see my daughter because of the pandemic, it's just like, and this is a lot of people went through that. So, Dawn, I think this is really a great, perspective for the other listeners out there. We talked about anxiety. We talked about this breastfeeding thing. It's like, I say it all the time. We need to make it a more normal thing to talk about these things. I'm happy that this podcast seems like it's a very safe space, but in other ways, people need to be able to hear this too, that are not like, sometimes I wonder, like, if like a non-aerialist finds this podcast and they attach to it, like, how do they deal with some of the talk? Like I know how to invert and crochet, but then that last twizzle down to an ankle hang, like, I just don't know about that. Like, how is a non-aerialist what are they supposed to do with that? Because I'm like, that totally makes sense.
I feel like that every time I talk to my husband about aerial. Like last night, he was asking about something. I actually felt really impressed. He knew what something was that I just did not expect him to know. But I always, he's like, oh, how was class today? I was like, oh yeah, we worked on an L handstand and upside down boat. And like, and it's like, do you?
We understand each other to a certain extent. Even the terms between like-minded aerialists, you switch up the apparatus or you switch up the city you're in, is completely out the window. But I appreciate you carving out the time. We had a little, man, let me tell you, I am not good at math and I am not good at languages and I'm not good at time zones. And so we had a time zone mess up because apparently Arizona does not follow daylight savings time, and mountain time and Pacific time match for 6 months out of the year. Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? But thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. This is, like I said, it was the most empowering part of my pregnancy. And so like getting to talk about it and kind of relive it again is such a joy.
All right. Thank you so much to Dawn for being with us today. If you want to find her on Instagram, she is at Circus Girl Next Door. The studio she trains at Momentum Aerial Arts. And the podcast that she hosts is called Untamed Shrews, and I'll leave links for you guys in the show notes. Again, if you want to go to the show notes and find links to sign up for weekly virtual live Roll It Out class, you need it. Just try me out. There's a 14-day free trial, so there's no risk at all. And aerial rehab, and then my comprehensive course. Check it out there. And if you love hearing the sound of my voice and are just needing more of it, there's also Greener Grass, which is a podcast all about ordinary people living extraordinary lives. It's me and my girlfriend Kelly, who I grew up with. We danced in high school, reconnected, and we started this thing. It's growing. We interview all types of people. It's definitely broader than this very niche topic that we have here. So if you wanna listen to other people's stories from all around the world, check that out. All right. Honor us with a 5-star rating and a review anywhere you get your podcasts. Check out Digitent Podcast Network. There's a lot of health and wellness brands there that have amazing podcasts. And thanks to Asa Watkins, our sound engineer. I appreciate you. Please give any comments. Let me know what you think. And really appreciate you guys. Signing off. See you next time. This is Expecting Realist.